And welcome to an quick episode of the TechnoBuffalo Show, where we're going to be discussing Star Wars The Last Jedi. On Monday morning, Lucasfilm officially announced the title of Episode 8, the next installment in the Skywalker saga, so not to be confused with a Star Wars story, which are standalone films. And joining me today is our gaming editor, Joey Davidson.
Hey. God, I'm just cutting you right off, man. That's how excited I am about this.
Yes, well, it is exciting. Finding out the title of a Star Wars film is somewhat like Christmas Day, although we have no idea what this means.
Yeah, I guess we kind of do. Like, there's some. Let's just dive right into it, man. There's a lot of. First of all, if you're listening to this, let's just assume that you've seen all the movies, okay?
Yes.
You don't necessarily have to be like ankle or knee or thigh deep or whatever in the extended lore, which I don't even know if that's canon anymore, but let's just assume that you've seen the films. Okay. So that said, at the end of The Force Awakens, we meet Luke Skywalker. So, I mean, I guess the title sort of plays at the chance that Luke is the Last Jedi.
And Luke was referred to as the Last Jedi in The Force Awakens by Kylo Ren and Snoke.
Well, there you go. And interestingly enough, if you're watching this on YouTube, I think the plan right now is to have the new film's logo up, just kind of like there. But interestingly, that logo is red, just like the logo of Return of the Jedi.
Yes, which I find interesting because that also plays back to the old, when it was called Revenge of the Jedi.
Right.
But Revenge was quickly killed off as a title for that film. I think the thing we have to remember here is that Jedi is singular and plural. So it could be referring to a singular Jedi, which would be Luke in this case. Or it could be referring to multiple Jedi, which we would assume would be Luke and Rey.
I hadn't even thought about that. So, yeah, I guess that's true, man. Wow, the pluralization of Jedi comes to dupe us again.
Yes,
I don't even know. I think maybe that I think is the essence of a great pun. With The Force Awakens, I took that to mean a couple things when before I saw the film and after I saw the film. So before I saw the film, I sort of assumed, like, okay, The Force Awakens, obviously, there's been a pause in the growth of the Jedi movement, and the Force is waking up in someone. And I didn't know if it was a good Force or a bad Force or whatever. That was just... But upon watching the movie, and maybe you have a different thought on this, Sean, but... for some reason in my brain, the moment that Rey dupes Kylo Ren and like starts looking into his mind when he's like got her kidnapped, that is the titular moment of the movie. Like that is the Force Awakening, so to speak.
Well, I actually think it's when she first touches Anakin's lightsaber.
Oh, stupid smart Sean.
But the back to that Kylo Ren scene, though, there's actually something fairly important said there, because when he reads her mind, he says, I see an ocean and you see an island. So she had dreamt about where Luke was.
Right. Was that her waking up, maybe?
Yeah. So I think she had always been touched by the Force, but it had not fully awoken in her until she touched the lightsaber.
Touched by the Force. Now that is the title of a Lifetime movie set in the Star Wars universe, by the way.
Yes, exactly. It's, touched by the Force. It would be, I can see a couple leading ladies, one of them's an abused wife.
God. Yeah.
So...
Well, I think that there's... So the title is really interesting, and it brings a lot of potential, like, negativity to it. So that middle film, at least with The Empire Strikes Back, and I don't really like to talk about the prequels, but that middle film is always like that kind of, that dark, that, like, hopeless, that... like really, really rotten film where lots of bad stuff happens, and the end is a cliffhanger where you're like, well, crap, this is never going to work out. And The Last Jedi has a really interesting, ominous tone to it, especially with that red coloring.
Yeah, it does have a very ominous tone to it. My guess, and this is 1,000% a guess, is we're going to see Luke die in this one.
Right. Well, yeah. Yeah.
And then, he can come back in episode 9 as a Force ghost, and Rey, you must go to the Dagobah system. But, okay, maybe not the Dagobah system. But I think we're going to see a lot of progression of the Force in episode 8. We're going to, Rey has reached Luke, who is this mythical, almost prophet-like figure now in the Star Wars universe.
Right.
And, Rian Johnson has said that unlike other Star Wars films, there is not going to be a time jump between The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. We're going to pick up with her on that island on Ahch-To with Luke.
Yeah, I not to sideline us too hard here, but that's interesting to me, the fact that they're not doing a time jump. I felt like, and I don't necessarily think that Lucas did it on purpose, but those time jumps left plenty of room for authors to pick up like extended universe canon. Those time jumps became like almost a franchise in and of themselves.
Exactly, because one of the most something that caught my attention when I was a child was in Empire Strikes Back when Han's, getting ready to leave the Hoth base, and, he says, well, that bounty hunter we ran into on Ord Mantell changed my mind.
Right. Right. Okay. I mean, that was just like for a moviegoer back then, I mean, that was just like what?
Exactly.
Yeah.
In the previous film, we'd had the mention of you fought beside my father in the Clone Wars.
Right.
Then we had, this mention of something happening on a planet we had never seen called Ord Mantell. And so, it did become a hallmark of the franchise. Now with what's going on with the canon, and the legends and all that, they can still slip stuff into between these movies with no problem. I mean, they could do a story on Snap Wexley, the X-Wing pilot, doing something between Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. They no longer feel like they have to write about the core characters. They can go off on these little tangents with all the side characters.
I mean, but that's been a forever I mean, I can still remember vividly reading. I think the book was called Tales from Jabba's Palace. Maybe that might be what it was called.
I remember it.
Okay, so there we go. So, but literally that was nothing, but it was a collection of short stories about the characters that you met in Return of the Jedi at Jabba's Palace. So, like, there was like an entire short story on the Rancor's Keeper, which was hilarious, by the way. I don't know if hilarious is the right word. In hindsight, it was hilarious, but they've always done that side character thing. I'm not necessarily saying that Disney's messing up by connecting the dots directly. No. I'm just saying that it's an interesting choice given the history of Star Wars as a money-making franchise, and there's always been money in the stuff that's happened between the films.
Well, I read a brief interview with the costume designer of Rogue One, and she was saying that they have to pay so much attention. They can't just do throwaway costumes in the Star Wars universe because you never know which character is going to end up having its own novel.
Oh, right. Yeah, and I mean, nerds like us, I guess, we spend so much time obsessing over the intricacies of costume marks and stuff. Yeah, it would be just so ridiculous if, like, they got real casual with those costume marks, and then here we are connecting the dots where they shouldn't be connected because we're nerds. But it happens.
All right, this is going to really show just how nerdy I can get.
Oh, God.
Remember on Jakku, Rey is eating outside of her AT-AT, and when she's done, she puts on that X-Wing fighter helmet.
Yeah.
It has a yellow symbol on it for, I believe they're called the Traflin Aces.
Oh my God, Sean, here we go.
On Yavin 4, in Rogue One, you see more of the Aces.
Yeah, and I bet that was 100% intentional.
It was intentional.
Yeah.
It was intentional. So yes, her helmet in Force Awakens carried over into Rogue One.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that's cool. That's just like that's a Hallmark touch. Just a little. She's been touched by the Force. One could say. I feel like that's
coming to Lifetime this fall.
So, with The Last Jedi, I'm excited. It sounds like you're excited too. I do love its ominous tone. I think people are going to perhaps unnecessarily give it crap if it happens to be, if it happens to follow the same story beats as The Empire Strikes Back. Do you think that's merited? People kind of hit Force Awakens for kind of following the same story beats as A New Hope pretty hard. Do you think that's...
I don't... I as you well know, Joey, I follow production closely on these films, so I'm going to try to be very careful here in what I say so as not to spoil anything. What I know of the film so far, it does have different beats than Empire.
Oh, stop it. Get out of here. I don't even want to hear this. I don't even want to hear what you're saying, man.
You're such a spoiler phobe. That's literally all I'm going to say. I feel there are different things happening.
Okay, well, that's fair. I hope so. I love the title. I love how ominous it is. I think that if I were to sit here and play devil's advocate really quickly, I think that the Star Wars universe is really guilty of hitting this drum a little too hard too often. The Jedi are rare. Like, I mean, how many times have we heard about how rare the Jedi are?
Yeah, and that was one of the things. I mean, when we got to the prequels, and we find out that there's over 10,000 of them, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You get a lightsaber. You get a lightsaber.
Right.
Everybody gets a lightsaber.
Right. So, I mean, I don't.
Now,
I get that this is the way that they have to spin this hero's yarn, but I'm kind of a little bit bored of the whole like underdog, last of hope of the universe. Let's take on this big bad guy. I mean, it's like the same story every time. So
right.
This is me way overanalyzing for argument's sake, by the way. I just want to clarify that.
I wrote not long after seeing The Force Awakens that, okay, great, we did the super weapon story. Let's not do any more super weapons.
Right. That's true.
We're done with them. Fine. You set it up. I mean, Starkiller Base makes absolutely no sense in a physics, mindset whatsoever.
I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was awesome.
It was awesome, but think about it. It can only fire from that one position.
Yeah. Yeah, and...
Fine. So, now here's one thing that kind of puts a twist on this whole Last Jedi title, and this is going to sound really odd. When Daisy Ridley still had her Instagram account, every Friday she would post workout videos.
I didn't know that Daisy Ridley lost her Instagram account.
She closed it. She wanted to separate from social media.
I see.
So, in one of her Friday workout videos, she wore a towel over her head, and she bluntly said, "You can't see my hairdo."
Oh.
And that was while they were filming The Last Jedi. My suspicion has been, since that time, she's got the Padawan braid.
Okay.
So that, to me, would say that Luke is the Last Jedi, she is just merely a Padawan. And that if Luke gets killed in this film, she's going to have to quickly become a Jedi.
Okay, you have opened a lot of doors here, and I'm really not happy with
all from a woman wearing a towel over her.
Right. Well, no, it's not. Okay, to clarify, I do not care about her haircut or what plot revealing details it had. I mean, if she felt that she had to do that or whatever, maybe someone from costuming or whatever said, "Hey, don't show them this." Cool, get it, fine. The further Disney can separate themselves from the dang prequels, the better. And those stupid Padawan braids are just... if I see that thing, I'm going to think of Anakin Skywalker and how much I hated everything about the way that they treated, so to speak, raising a Jedi in that film. I hated it. I know that sounds crazy and extreme even, but like, it just... hearing about it makes me cringe.
Raising a Jedi also coming to Lifetime.
Also, No, that one's going to be on ABC Family, probably.
Oh, okay.
I would watch Raising a Jedi, interestingly enough. If a toddler had Jedi powers and, if it was a sitcom all about coping with a particularly strong in the Force toddler, I would watch that.
I didn't give him the bottle. You gave him the bottle. I didn't give him the bottle. Johnny!
I know it's ridiculous. And I mean, listeners, you can make fun of me too. It's fair. It's ridiculous to be so adverse to, like, the prequels. I get it. I get that it sounds so insane, but you have to understand that growing up, I was that kid that was, like, obsessed with Star Wars. And I know you can relate to this, Sean.
Oh, just a tiny bit.
Big freaking dork. Like, before I got into sports, before I did any of that stuff, Star Wars was my life. And the stupid first movie, I remember that video, the music video, came out on Total Request Live. Do you remember when the Phantom Menace's music video was on MTV every week? Do you remember this?
I didn't watch MTV at that point in my life.
You're a bigger nerd than me. So, like, if it was on Total Request Live every day for weeks when it first came out. That's how hyped everyone was about the Phantom Menace. And I remember I went to the movie theaters and I was hyped out of my britches for this movie, and I fell asleep. I fell asleep in a Star Wars movie when I was, like, ODing on the stuff.
I recently rewatched all 7 films, and yeah, the Phantom Menace is a tough watch.
Oh man, I mean, I make the joke, but, like, it's only like 20% joke. The thing is, it's C-SPAN in space with commercials about space NASCAR. That's all it is. It's awful.
I think he learned some lessons from the Phantom Menace. I think Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith are far more watchable.
Yeah, I need to go back. The Phantom Menace just tainted my view on that trilogy so hard and so early. I left that theater dejected and a small fraction of the Star Wars fan that I was. So to come back, when you mentioned that Padawan braid,
I see what you're saying. I do.
It's war flashbacks, basically. That's what happens. It's war flashbacks, and I'm just start picturing the things that I hated about that trilogy, and I loved how The Force Awakens sort of managed to eschew all that crap, and it was just a love letter, and I loved that.
Which you and I have never really had a very in-depth conversation about The Force Awakens. I mean, in your ranking of the films, how do you feel about that one?
Wow. Well, it's interesting, but like, and I haven't watched the original trilogy since I watched it with my son not too long ago, and like before that, it had been a couple of years. It always flipped for me. Vying for the top spot was always Return of the Jedi, and interestingly, A New Hope. I was never that guy that, like, thought that Empire Strikes Back was one of the greatest films ever. I mean, it's a good movie, but I just like the other two, how they operated in the Star Wars universe so much more. When I first saw the first Force Awakens, I was so excited by a lot of the stuff that J.J. Abrams was doing. I put it right below those two movies, but
it's in my top 3.
Yeah, it fluctuates between 3 and 4 when I think about it. You know how things change like that. I mean, you ask me 2 weeks from now and I might have a different opinion, but, like, it's good. It's better, and I don't even say this as someone that blindly hated the prequels. It's better than all of those movies.
Although I rate Revenge of the Sith above Return of the Jedi.
What? We gotta go, man. I can't even talk to you right now. I can't. That is terrible. What are you talking about?
Revenge of the Sith rates above Return of the Jedi for me. Because,
is that you, George? Is that George? Is that you?
Well, you see that I was trying to do so much with the prequels. No, as someone who grew up with the original trilogy, I remember sitting in the theater going, Why are there teddy bears beating up stormtroopers?
Yeah, the Ewok stuff. I mean, I get it. I think I was the right age for that, though. Like, the Ewoks was your generation's Jar Jar Binks before
Yes.
Jar Jar Binks was a thing. I know that. I think that I was the right age. The Ewoks are nowhere near as terrible as Jar Jar. So
No, but I mean, Jar Jar.
you could put that in your pipe and smoke it. You could crack that over tonight's spaghetti. I don't care.
Yes, but Jar Jar's in like 30 seconds of Revenge of the Sith, so you don't even hardly notice him.
I mean, yeah, that there. I just, man. God, Lucas is a cheese ball. He's such a cheese ball.
You know,
Somewhere, no, hold on. Picture that man at Skywalker Ranch, okay? He's watching that final cut of Revenge of the Sith, or whatever the hell it's called, and he gets to that part where Anakin learns about what's-her-face being dead, and he screams, no, okay? And he gets on his horse, and he rides over to the barn that has all the old movies, all right? And he says, let's put that into Return of the Jedi, too. Are you kidding me? That's George Lucas. And that man thought that crap was good enough to put it in the other movies.
Now, honestly, you lost me when you said picture George Lucas riding a horse. All I can picture is he's put like a dewback costume on a horse, and he rides the dewback.
That's fine. If that's the mental image you conjured up, I'm all right with it.
Yeah.
But do you see? I love George Lucas for the original Star Wars, and the man's a visionary. Like, I'm not.
Yes.
He is. But I think that George Lucas should have stopped Star Wars, maybe kept going with Indiana Jones if he wanted. I don't care. I always saw that as just a different tier of franchise. I love Indiana Jones. And I was also the guy that didn't really care how ridiculous Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was. Like, I don't care. It was an entertaining movie. It just, the universe.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
Do we have to, Sean?
No, we don't. But no, it was not entertaining.
It was an entertaining movie. It was entertaining. You need to stop it. You need to stop. You know what? You're one of those people. You're going to sit here and you're going to try to tell me that you're going to punch holes in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull because of how unrealistic it was, but an arc that melts the face off of a Nazi is not unrealistic.
Nuke the fridge. Nuke the fridge.
Yeah, nuke the fridge. Listen, and how much do we love Happy Days? And they jumped the shark. How much do we love that show? We love it because it was entertaining as F. And we love...
I feel a whole new podcast coming on. Just, Sean and Joey discuss the au revoir of George Lucas.
God.
No, I had a lot of other problems with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull besides the fridge.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's fair. I mean, whatever. Let's move back what?
Well, no, I back to Star Wars where we started all this. Do you feel that the best thing for Star Wars was Lucas not being involved anymore?
I do. Not because I necessarily think that Lucas is bad or oh man, how can I qualify this? I think Lucas was too close to Star Wars to do it any good. And I think that even if we were to look over the prequels, dude's tired of it. I mean, this has been his life for way too long, and I feel like, personally, I would have loved if Lucas dipped his hand back into stuff like American Graffiti. I love that movie.
American Graffiti is a classic.
It's amazing.
So good.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I wish that George Lucas had tried his hands at movies that Kevin Smith makes. Like, I feel like George Lucas probably would have been really well suited for, like, not necessarily as ridiculous as Jay and Silent Bob, but like, could you imagine a Mallrats-esque movie done by George Lucas?
It would be amazing. I think you're 100% right. George Lucas got so swallowed up by Star Wars that it grew out of his control by the end of Return of the Jedi. He no longer controlled Star Wars. It was controlled by the fans. And he didn't know how to operate inside of that space. So with the new films, we're bringing in people that grew up with the original trilogy, that worship the original trilogy. And there are things to be said about The Force Awakens that maybe J.J. Abrams, slobbered on it a little too much. I like a couple of the throwaway things inside the Millennium Falcon, like Finn holding up the training ball or, touching the chessboard and it came on. So there were a couple things that you're like, okay, great, we get it, JJ.
You didn't like that?
I thought it was a little over the top.
Oh, no. See, this is just... Those moments for me, like... That... Man, this is going to sound cheesy, but I don't care. That Millennium Falcon scene and picking up the training bot and touching the chessboard, like... That right there was that moment in the movie. It was downtime. It was in between pieces of action, and it happened to be a moment where I feel like J.J. Abrams was saying, like, I love this too. And like that was kind of like a moment for me where I was just like, cool, Star Wars is in good hands. Like, I was totally okay with it at that moment.
We do have one concern here, though. So now each movie's being directed by someone different.
Right.
Do we have Rian Johnson come and go, oh, man, I want to have my moment now?
Well, and
I'm borrowing trouble. I fully admit I'm borrowing trouble.
Yeah. I don't necessarily... Well, Rian Johnson is apparently his name now. He's weirded me out as a director pick.
Yeah, me too.
Since the beginning. I mean, like, what movies are to his credit? Ghost Rider?
He did Ghost Rider.
Wasn't that
big
him?
One's Looper.
Looper.
I like a lot of Looper.
I like Looper.
Not all of Looper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am looking up here real
Rider,
quick. No, he did not do... He did not do Ghostbuster or Ghost Rider. May, Brick, The Brothers Bloom, Looper. Looper was his last movie before The Last Jedi.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm looking at it, and I liked Looper.
Oh, he directed a couple episodes of Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
No,
I don't really know what that says about his Star Wars,
I'm nervous. I think they did the right thing with having JJ go first, because JJ has set the tone of this trilogy.
Yeah. Man, I'm so... You know what? You know why I think J.J. Abrams deserves a goddamn handshake?
Oh,
bringing back practical
1,000%.
effects. Like, I'm so tired of... Like, I know the computer effects work, and I think you and I we might have talked about this. It might have been with someone else, but like... They're good. There's no doubt about it. I mean, they're better than they've ever been, obviously, and that statement's only going to keep being true as time goes on. But I feel like for Star Wars, like, there was just... The originals just had this feeling of like authenticity and reality that came from practical effects that I don't think the CG stuff ever really was able to.
Here's the crazy thing. So
recreate.
When Finn gets to the Jakku outpost and he's trying to find water, and he finally goes and he drinks from that pool where the big creature's drinking. The big creature was a practical effect, but here's the craziness. We saw leaked images when they were filming that movie. It was built at Pinewood, then flown to Abu Dhabi for 30 seconds of film time.
Yeah. I mean, that's a love of the craft right there.
Yeah.
And that's Disney
when I
saying,
finally saw the film
okay.
and I saw how long that creature was in the film, I was like, you're kidding me.
I mean, think about that. That's
I know.
we're getting so far off. This was supposed to be a quick.
I know this was supposed to be a quick, chat, and we're at almost a half hour. So, Last Jedi.
Yeah, well,
I'm excited for it. The title fills me with a lot of anticipation because it has so many possible meanings.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm right there too. It's subtle. It's subtle, but it's done on purpose. The text and color choice that was all intentional. Make no mistake. Yeah.
So yes, this
I'm
short conversation. This is what happens when Joey and I get to talking. Got a little longer than we wanted. Again, this is not a full episode of the TechnoBuffalo Show. If you do enjoy TechnoBuffalo, please make sure to check out the full show on iTunes, Google Play Store, Pocket Casts, RSS feed, Stitcher app. You can find us just about anywhere. Until next time, I'm Sean Ani. I'm the Director of Operations for TechnoBuffalo. I've been joined by Joey Davidson. No problem. I'm sure there will be more of these as more information comes out about Star Wars. Until next time, thank you for joining us. Take it easy.
Yeah. Bye.